From the studios of Cheshire TV in Keene, New Hampshire, it's The Men's Room, a show by men, about men, and for everyone. Sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center and hosted by Damien Licata and Forrest Seymour.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Men's Room. I'm Damien Licata and this is Forrest Seymour.
Licata?
Did I say Licata?
You did.
That's my old Boston thing coming up.
Okay, all right, just checking.
It's Licata, with just an A, there's no R there.
You look a little different today, but okay. Sorry.
So we are brought to you by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center.
That's right. Which also sponsors a drop-in support group for all men every Sunday night at 7 o'clock at 25 Roxbury Street, and we're going to talk a little more about that at the end of the show.
Yes, we will. And normally we have some little thing to say about what's going on in the news and so forth today, but we have some great guests on today.
Right.
We have a lot to talk about.
Count them two.
Two guests. That's right. Two for the price of one today.
That's right. And we want to have time to get.
We want to have time, so I'm going to shut up and.
All right. So I'm going to introduce them. We're
just
going to jump right in. That's great.
Go for it.
We have two gentlemen with us today, Bob Meissner and Boysen Hodgson, and they both have been. I probably just mispronounced both their names. They've both been involved for a number of years with the Mankind Project, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's really exciting. Bob lives in Dublin, here in New Hampshire. He's an executive search consultant in Keene, father of two kids who are 15 and 32. His
no one's
mission.
ever searched for me. Has anyone ever searched for you?
Searched? No.
No. Okay.
No, I don't think so.
No.
But if somebody wants to,
right?
they could.
Go to Don.
Yeah, okay, right. Talk to Bob. And Bob's mission, as he says it, is to help each man and woman identify and reach their full potential. He's been involved with the Mankind Project for 16 years. Good long time. Boysen is 36, been married for a couple of years, is a graphic designer. He lives in Springfield, Mass. It's really great of him to come up here to Keene all this way for the show.
It's a good drive.
Yeah, yeah. He is the center director for the New England Center of the Mankind Project and has been involved with the organization since 2004. So welcome to the Men's Room.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
So I guess the Mankind Project is something that some folks out there may be familiar with. I have to say, shouldn't hit my microphone.
No,
was not.
Video production 101.
Right.
Yeah.
But so we'd like to hear a little bit about the two of you, sort of what got you involved in this kind of work, what drew you to it initially, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about specifically what the Mankind Project is.
Sure.
So, Boysen, what sort of, how did you
Got me.
find the
How'd I
Mankind
get here?
Project? How did they find you?
So I got involved in the project in 2004. My younger brother, I have 7 brothers, 6 of whom, so there are 6 of us who have done the New Warrior training and are involved in the Mankind Project at some level.
Wow.
And my brother did the training about 10, 11 years ago and invited me to do the training and get involved in the Mankind Project. It took me quite a few years to actually get to a point where I was on a really nice upward climb and ready to take the next step for myself, ready to really challenge myself. And then a chiropractor who I was seeing took me outside after a chiropractic visit, and he said, there's this thing called the Mankind Project. Have you ever heard of it? And I laughed in his face and said, and my brother's been inviting me to do the training for 7 years. I guess it's time.
Right, right.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting because I think for a lot of people, they get involved in using the term men's work very broadly at a time of crisis is what it is.
That's
but
true for a lot of men.
Yeah, but you're saying for you it was more like a time of strength and
absolutely
growth.
Yeah, and I think that's true for a lot of men. A lot of men, what I experience is that a lot of men, when they feel stuck, when they don't know what their next step is, when they are on a downswing in their lives, in crisis in their lives, they will step through this as a jump start for their lives. Right. For me it was I was ready.
Right.
And I was going. And that's what I've been doing.
Right. So you felt you were strong enough at that point. So there was something in you said that you needed to have a certain amount of resources to bring to this.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. I needed to be ready in my mind and ready in my heart to look at what I needed to look at.
Yep.
And it took me a while to get there. And then I was also aware of a missing piece in my life about community and connection, especially to other men. I have close connections to my brothers, but I had never felt really connected to other men, and felt a desire to have that in my life.
That's great. It's your story.
Well, interestingly enough, in 1990, I was going through a divorce, and my psychotherapist in a group therapy session, at the end of it, said, "Hey, Bob, you've gone through this. I think you've processed the divorce. You're ready to get back into the world. And have you ever thought about this thing called, at the time, it was called the New Warriors?" And I said, "Never heard of it." Well, one of the guys, she said, in our group, it hadn't come out, is a new warrior. You ought to talk to Denny. I said, "Okay, that sounds good." So I did, and Denny just said, "Bob, you should just do it." It's just one of those things that I can see that you're ready because you're at a gate. You're at a portal that you're ready to walk through. I felt very good about myself. I had dealt with some of the issues that had affected me in my first marriage, and I wanted to discover myself. And similar to Boysen, I really didn't have any true men friends, although that wasn't what I was looking for, was true men friends. I wanted to discover more about me. And I actually talked to the founder, one of the three founders, a man named Bill Kauth, at the time lived in the same community in Milwaukee that I lived in, and I went over and visited with him, and he had a similar approach to it, although he helped with some answers to my questions. I think some of the things that we can talk about here today for sure. But again, he said, "Bob, do it, trust, stretch yourself." And he brought up a point that I think is valid, that there wasn't, and there isn't really in the United States as opposed to other cultures, a real men's initiation. In other words, how do men know that they're men? And having a 15-year-old son, what would I say to Gus about, "Hey Gus, you'll know you're a man when," and then let him fill in the blanks. And if you asked any young man or man what that is, you'd get a different answer. So in the United States, in this culture, that isn't a defined event. So initiation or discovering yourself as a man was very appealing and compelling, and I did it.
That's great. That's good. Yeah, something we've talked about on the show before is that teenagers, or teenage boys and girls too, are sort of left to their own devices to figure out initiation. So they come up with stuff about really dangerous things with cars and alcohol and that kind of stuff. So if there were a couple things that let's assume our viewers have never heard of the Mankind Project before, if there are a couple of things like little nuggets you wanted to be sure they hear, what or how would you sum it up, or how would you explain it in a nutshell? One or both of you.
Sure, I'll take a first crack. So the Mankind Project is a nonprofit organization that aims at assisting men in finding and living missions of service, and missions of service that they develop for themselves, to figure out what they want in their lives, to look at what's holding them back in their lives, and to be able to move through that to live in mission, as we say.
So I'm sorry. So this is a mission out in the world.
Right. Right. Not a mission to the Project Mankind. It's your personal mission. You thank you. You shared my personal mission today. That's a perfect example.
Okay.
Or an example. It's mine. That may not be reflected by any other man. It's just my mission.
So is there just going through the checklist here? Is there a religious affiliation here, a political affiliation? Is there is there an agenda?
No. No. There are beliefs. I would say that we have beliefs, and some of the beliefs that we hold are kind of at core level. We hold values of integrity, accountability, multicultural awareness, respect, generosity. So there are a lot of core beliefs that we look for in ourselves, and also a fundamental belief that I think is kind of a premise around which a lot of the work that we do is based is, are you taking responsibility for your life? Are you not laying responsibility for who you are and what you do and what you say and what you think and what you feel on other people around you, but being aware that this is my feeling, I'm responsible for it, this is my action, I'm responsible for it, I'm responsible for the impact of my action as well,
Right.
and living through that.
I think that there's a certain skepticism out there, maybe a healthy skepticism about a lot of men's organizations,
Including ours.
including ours,
Yeah.
organizations like the Promise Keepers, for example, there's this question in a lot of people's minds that it might be in some ways anti-women or anti-feminist or in some way
Or homophobic.
patriarchal.
Good.
So how do you respond to that?
I've got
of
lots of
concerns.
responses to that. So what I'd say about Bill Kauth and the two other founders, one of the core things that they started when they wanted to form this organization, they looked at the women's movement that was happening at the time and said, we want some.
Exactly.
Right.
We want to be able to get with other men and share with other men in a way that's
Very
real,
good point.
in a way that's true, in a way that's open.
And healthy.
And healthy.
Yeah.
And so emotional literacy is a lot about what we are aiming for. Women, my opinion is, women have a lot more emotional literacy in our culture.
A
And I think
higher
that's
EQ,
cultural,
right.
A higher EQ. I think that's
Generally
a cultural
speaking,
thing.
yeah.
Yep.
Mankind Project and the men in New Warriors, we are not anti-women.
In fact, there's, if I could share
Yeah.
this, there is a parallel women's movement called the Woman Within,
Yep.
which is available online, and any woman and man. I think that's the beautiful part about this. Many men come to this movement through women who say
Absolutely.
this would be
You need something. You better
right,
get
right, or you're ready for something,
Right.
or you're open for something. And jumping to the end, at the when a weekend is over, there is a celebration which brings the families of the men who went through the weekend training together. And I'll never forget, I had just, I had not yet been married, or remarried, excuse me, and I invited my my partner at the time to that celebration, and she felt that I wasn't the same man because she could see an empowerment, she could see a transformation in me that came to me through the course of the weekend. And she became a great advocate for the program. And one thing I can say as a member in the years that I've been in the program is that the last thing that happens is women bashing. It's just, we look at ourselves, excuse me, the feminine part of ourselves, and we can bash any part of ourselves that isn't functional.
And boy, do we.
Absolutely.
As men.
Whether it be a feminine side, or my dad's side, or my mother's side, or my man's side that isn't functioning, and look at that. But it isn't that third party. That's what Boydsen's saying is, right now, is about responsibility. You can't fix yourself by putting the onus on someone else.
Yeah.
Yep. You had said that it was called the New Warriors at one time.
Yeah.
And I suspect there are reasons why that changed. The warrior has a lot of connotations. A lot of people feel men are warlike enough already. We don't need to be anymore. And I was looking at, this is a New Warrior on one of the websites, the National New Warriors movement, and there's this symbol here, this logo.
Yeah.
And it's a eagle with an olive branch as
That's
opposed
right.
to a
The
dove.
peaceful warrior.
And a looks like a shield, something representing a shield and so forth. But so what is your definition of what a warrior is, and how is it different
Great
from
question.
what most people might think of as a warrior?
Good. So one of the things that I've kind of come to is that most of what we look at as warriors in our culture, the way it is now, WME, radical fighting, I'm not sure what, and kind of the machismo of the warrior is not, so we have the New Warrior, and the New Warrior is about looking inside to where the real battles need to be fought.
Right. Right, the
And-
demons and the monsters that are in all of us.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So I see a parallel to the word jihad, for example. Jihad has a lot of negative connotations
Really
these
negative
days.
connotation then.
But the traditional religious idea of jihad is the internal struggle.
Absolutely.
It's not the struggle, the outward struggle, so much as the internal struggle. It's not the political struggle.
Absolutely.
I might say this, that a man that goes through this initiation has done that battle. And I think that's why the word or the label warrior sticks. This is a warrior brother. But the other components of a man that are honored during that weekend are the lover, the magician, the magical person in us, the coyote kind of individual. The king is huge in the sense that we are looking to find that king.
Connected to purpose.
Right, connected to purpose, and of course the warrior. So those are components of each man, and to many degrees, although it may be defined differently, certainly each woman. So the warrior sticks because of the outcomes.
Yeah, and that may have just rung a bell. Jungian,
Right.
archetypal psychology,
right.
very much built into the work. Very much a part of two of the men who founded the project were both counselors, psychologists, and so they looked at that and like the work of Joseph Campbell and to a certain extent the work of Robert Bly,
For sure.
about the journey.
And a lot of the Robert Bly and Robert Campbell and others of the sort of the mythopoetic
Mythopoetic
kind of
movement,
ideas have come under fire too, historically, for being sort of retrograde in sort of their ideas about masculinity or being patriarchal.
Yeah.
So there's that. There is that notion of this sort of, when you start talking about traditional archetypal
Values
maleness,
Yeah.
you push a lot of buttons.
Yeah, and I totally get that. So I come from a very feminist theory perspective. I've done a lot of reading, done a lot of studying, and group work and different things like that. And for me, more to the now, someone like Robert Jensen would say, it's about our humanness.
Right.
It's about, it's not about manness, womanness.
Right.
We recognize that culturally speaking, we're kind of put together and we're trained in a lot of different ways. And for men, a lot of that training is towards that machismo, is
Right.
towards that really kind of
absolutely.
backwards thinking. And so, for me, I'm about being human. And I'm about me having good boundaries, me having sensitivity, me having insight, intuition, nurturance, all of those things typically associated with women. My wife, Kendra, same except flipped. So for her, it's like about getting in touch with how does she need to step up into being a warrior for herself, drawing clear boundaries, not being locked into what we're supposed to be.
She'd agree with you about that?
My wife went through a program, not A Woman Within. My wife did a weekend called Women in Power, which is similar, a little bit on the harder edge. We have a warrior relationship,
Wow.
which
like
is
fun.
Great.
radical
Yeah.
and awesome and fun.
Yep.
So what can you tell us about I am aware of, from our conversations recently, of a couple different pieces to what the Mankind Project sort of offers. There's the weekends, and then there's some follow-up group stuff.
Cool.
So what, I'm assuming there's more, but what can you tell us about? You've just recently done
about
some things,
iGroup?
and you're
Yes, that's right. We should talk about maybe those three segments.
Why don't we talk a little bit? Yeah, let's talk a little bit about first the
The weekend itself.
Yeah.
the weekend itself. What happens when somebody?
because that's like the first. That would be the first step for someone.
That's the
Sure.
that is the
Pretty much,
initiation.
Yeah, that is the initiation.
That is.
So the weekend is basically a 48-hour experience. We've used the word initiation. So you have this mixture of kind of Jungian psychology and traditional initiation and You know, some people are familiar with like the Landmark Forum or any number of different kind of growth, self-growth weekends. So we do processes during the weekend.
That's really it, yeah.
It's just a process-based thing. In New England, we have 3 trainings a year. We bring 30 guys in, 32 men in, and then there's a staff of 40
It's incredible commitment.
to support that. The staff men pay to be there to help pay for their food and their lodging and do that. And then men are taken through the kind of hero's journey on the weekend. Through different processes, group processes, individual processes. There's some.
So they're tested in some ways. There's some hardship involved.
There's definitely the kind of idea of the separation, the descent, the ordeal, and the reintegration. Okay. So there's the arc of the weekend right there.
Right.
So you know, I'm sure some people are thinking, "Ooh, that sounds pretty scary." Like, you know, how safe is that? Both safe emotionally and safe physically. You know, I think of, you know, there are a lot of organizations in our society that have dangerous initiation rites. You know, so what's it really like?
For me, I would say, because I went through it myself many years ago, and I've staffed 4 times, that safety in itself is a huge issue, and so it's a paramount. The staff are many of these men who have done 10 to 50 plus staffings. That's a commitment of a weekend, 50 different times in their lives for other men, so that other men might get the gold, the outcomes that they came to get. And safety is a big deal. And I think that the psyche, if a man is ready for the weekend, he's taken on a journey where he can take as much as he can take. There's not pushed over any edge.
Or pass.
Right, or pass. So the most open man will come away with the most. The least open man at that moment in his journey may come away for himself with less than he wanted, but knows that he wants more. And that's where the post-weekend adventure really starts.
So talk about that.
Well, I want to first also say that many of the leaders, so we bring in, there are at least 4 leaders brought into a weekend. These are men who are certified by the project and do rigorous certification by the project. A lot of those guys are counselors and therapists and social workers who do this kind of work in their lives as well. And then
I imagine stuff is going to come up for some.
Yeah, it's going to really
trigger.
And
if they're psychologically, emotionally vulnerable, you need to be able to hold that, deal with it.
In fact, the word container
is
where they're in a safe container where there are 60, 70 men who have a similar mission about each man's safety and each man's journey. So there's a very, very high awareness for that.
There's also a financial commitment involved in this weekend. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $600. Am I right?
In New England, we have a unique process for handling money called the co-creative contribution process, which is you pay a deposit up front, and then after the weekend is finished, you're asked to take a week and to think about knowing what your financial reality is in your life, knowing what you got out of the weekend and what do you want to see happen for yourself and for other men in the future. You're asked to make a contribution based on that. The average cost of putting on a weekend in New England per man is about $650.
And it is a non-profit. We should point that out.
This is a non-profit organization. I'm a volunteer in the organization.
So we're getting short on time, so I want to have time to talk about what happens after this weekend. I mean, a lot of people go to these weekends. There are other organizations that do these kinds of things. There are sales organizations that do these kinds of things. People get all pumped up. They're all ready to go, and then they go home, and it just sort of deflates.
Exactly, dissipates.
Good. Yes.
My experience was, and I think it's very typical the way that the structure is, that after the weekend, the men, based mainly on geography, have the opportunity to participate in an integration group that typically lasts 8 weeks, and it is facilitated by, again, trained facilitators. Mine in Milwaukee went not 8 weeks, but is ongoing to this day. In fact, 16 years later.
Wow.
And I feel anything but codependency with this. We met as much as 3, even 4 times a month in evenings, very sensitive to family needs and own personal needs. And that both facilitated and later facilitated by ourselves as we ourselves did additional service and additional training for ourselves, and even participated in the staff of other weekends, continued our mission of growth. In other words, what is it that we discovered on the weekend, and what do we want, where do we want, what next? How can we empower ourselves with the other men from this integration group or I group to get what we came for, and how do we overcome the shadows that get in our way?
So there's sort of like at least 8 weeks of that.
At least.
And then maybe more.
Maybe more. And many I groups, and sometimes people move away and they join another I group. There's that kind of flexibility that exists.
And it sounds like also from what you're saying that at some stage down the road you can then come back to help staff.
Indeed.
So there's more involvement, opportunities for involvement.
The kind of idea of mentoring is built into what we do. So you'll have men with more experience, men with less experience. The I group that I came into had been in continuous existence for 12 years.
Wow.
I'm now involved in a thing called the I group incubator, which when we get together on a Thursday nights, there are 30 men or more coming in to that, all in Western Massachusetts, and then we split into smaller groups. And again, it's about, okay, so you know, my family's not getting what they need from me right now. What do I need to do to get beyond that? I'm not satisfied with my work. What do I need to do for me to step more fully into what I'm doing?
So we only have a couple minutes left, but why do you, I mean, this seems like this has been pretty successful, growing organization.
37,000 men have gone through this training. There are 39 centers.
In 10 words or less, why would you say?
We have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Got it.
and we still have to do our little wrap up. So,
sure.
Why do you think it's successful? What's the kernel that makes it successful?
It's successful because each man has a chance to get what he needs from it. The program is available there to both nurture and hold him accountable for his own goals, and then also help him through this process of debunking the demons that get in our way. And it's a process that works. It's a dynamic process. And once men have gone through this initiation, one of the reasons why it works is we have a shared, very powerful, very personal experience.
Right, that's right.
Because men are hungry for it.
Men are hungry, that's right. That's right.
And the world needs strong, gentle men.
That's right. Well said. Okay. So where can people get more information?
www.mkp.org, or in New England, mkpne.org. Our next weekend in New England is the beginning of November, so registration's open.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent.
Very good.
Well,
so
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has really been fascinating.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And in our last 2 minutes, we just want to say that in any kind of organization like this, or any kind of program, that we would certainly encourage you to investigate it, go online, look at the website, talk to other men who have done it. And everybody cannot be painted with the same brush out there. There are some really good organizations, and there are some that might not be what you thought they were going in.
And ours, of course, is a great organization, which which sponsors, as we mentioned earlier, a drop-in support group, 7 o'clock, at 25 Roxbury Street. All men are invited. This is in Keene. The URL to our website will roll at the end of the show. You can check out more information there. It's a great. Share some of what we've been talking about tonight. A safe space, place to come in and talk to other men. Real sort of easy way to get a toe in the door of talking with other men.
Yep.
So join us next week. We'll have another wonderful guest who I can't remember off the top of my head, and we'll see you all in the men's room.
We'll look it up and let you know when it happens.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
You've been watching The Men's Room, sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center and hosted by Damien Licata, co-director of the MMRC and executive director of the Granite State Monarchs, and Forrest Seymour, co-director of the MMRC and a therapist in private practice in Keene. You can learn more about the Monadnock Men's Resource Center, see past shows online, and find our Cheshire TV schedule at mmrconline.org. And thanks for joining us in the Men's Room.